cost, Jerry, on that?
I have 1.986 is what I have on that. 1,986,000.
No cost for the one above it?
The one above it, that's the top item.
So I'm looking at CR 152, Highway
Yes.
11.
Yeah,
to
that's all
Hudson.
one project.
One project.
That's all one
Okay.
project. Yep.
Okay.
So if we go down on the next item there, those are the bridges that we have in play for next year for replacement. 42-010-109, that is one we just signed a cost share agreement with the city of Lenox a couple weeks ago. And then there's another structure that is about a mile away from that. We're looking at replacing that one as well, hopefully doing both of them next year. This here, I would recommend that we don't cut these two, just because we do have a cost share agreement with the city of Lenox to get this project done. And we have a lot of engineering fees that we've already done in place on this, for these structures for next year. To cut it now, to me, would be kind of futile, so. Next item will be at DOT bridges. First one is 42-080-107, and this is the one that's currently under construction north of Worthing, a mile and a half north of Worthing. This is the DOT structure. They're doing it. This is on the STIP program, so we have an 80-20 match. This is the last structure we have that's on the previous system prior to Senate Bill 1 being in place and then the big grant being coming about. They're building that right now. It's supposed to be completed in October, but my guess is I won't get any bills on this until next year, since it's completion in November. So that's why that is in there again. The next line item under that is the federal bridge grant. Again, we have a removal that's going to be coming out, and that's supposed to happen over the winter this year. This is the Helders Bridge, White Bridge, 2 miles north and east of Canton, across the Sioux River. So that one is slated to be taken out this year or next year. So that bill won't come in until next year. The next one is a Sioux County Bridge. This is the Fairview Bridge across the Sioux River. I was informed by them about a year and a half ago that they were going to be doing a deck replacement on this, and we have a 50-50 cost share with this as an agreement, from back in the 60s or 70s. So this here is it was supposed to be completed this year, but it will not be. So it's going to be next year, is what they're telling me. Next item I have is a big grant. This is 42-020-201. This is a preservation grant we were awarded this year for a structure on County Road 105. Again, this year is an 80-20 split. Again, this is for total project is, I think it's 661,000, roughly 663. So our 20%, we're looking at 143,000. Again, these are monies and agreements that we've already signed off with on the state as far as funding this. The next one, we have no resealing this year, or for next year's plan. Base stabilization, I have 120,000 to do 3 miles of base stabilization on a gravel road. It can go, like I said. So, I mean, I guess worst case on that one, if it goes, again, I'm hoping to cut costs by having this done. The next project I have on the list is the micro surfacing, 10 to 12 miles. That's 590,000. This is about the only real preservation thing that we do on our roads as far as our asphalt roads to keep them up. If we cut it, we're going to fall behind further on our preservation. Again, typically reseal is supposed to be 4 to 5 years, maybe 6 years in between. Again, this here is just another preservation type of project that we've been doing on the roads, and they've been turning out very well. Hoping to get a longer years out of it. So that one, we can cut it. It's 590,000. The next two items on there is the T Road agreement and the Harrisburg Road agreement, and those are non-negotiable. We have agreements in place. Any questions on those?
Can you leave that up there for a
Okay.
second?
Can somebody zoom in on that? probably me, but,
Carter, can you
I
zoom
can't
in on
read it
this?
well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, the only things we really can talk about that we aren't already vested in is that the mill and overlay at the top.
The mill and overlay, base stabilization, and the microsurface. Those would be my recommendations if you're going somewhere with this.
Microsoft surfacing, well, have you thought about which roads those are, or just not at this time?
So typically, we'll start looking this fall to see where to best put it. We have a couple ideas in mind. And again, when we had the master transportation plan
Base stabilization.
done back in 19, we did have an assessment of our roads through that with IMS. And in that assessment, they gave us a 5-year plan on which to, and it told you what roads to do and what years and the treatments to put on them. So basically I'd go back and look on that, I think we'll be starting year 4 next year, to tell us where it would be best to have those treatments. If I'm thinking right now, maybe 105, that could probably use it. I know we've talked about 117. But 122, those are some options.
Do you have any of the results on those borings? On
I
that
have
whole
nothing
tour?
yet. I know that they were out, I was out a week and a half ago and they just completed them back then, so I'm assuming I will hear something soon, I would hope. I could reach out to them again this week. They took there was almost 40 bores that they did, core samples. So they got a lot of them to process.
And what project is that attached to?
That would be attached to the mill and overlay project,
At the very top
yes.
for Highway 11? Okay.
County Road 152 and 143, yes.
And at this time, we haven't heard anything from the state as far as possible compensation and using Highway 152, correct?
No, they're waiting on what I'm gonna find to see what type of project we're gonna be doing.
And you and I both have heard from people involved with that ethanol plant, how important it is for them to get their vehicles there.
Yes, this year I've had a lot of concerns about the surface on that road. It's just very rough.
What's the base stabilization? Is that a particular location or is that just?
Yeah, we would be going on County Road, it's a gravel road, County Road 122. And again, I'm looking at maybe 3 miles. Again, that's located north of town. It's gonna be near, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Christmas Tree Farm. They have the pumpkin festival out there in the fall.
Riverview.
Riverview, there you go, thank you. And the north 2 miles of that county road really take a beating with all that excess traffic, especially in the last 2-3 months of the year when they start opening up for this. And again, I've done some research on the base stabilization and we're looking at, less maintenance time out there. It's gonna be a harder surface. Like I said, I'm fine with that one. I really don't have a pros and cons. It just would be nice to do, but if it doesn't happen, I'm good.
Terry, is there a way to logically break this up? Like, instead of just saying, nope, we're not gonna do it at all, could you phase it? Could you phase it in?
Are you talking a particular project?
Yeah. like
Which one?
For the mill and overlay at the top, could you create a phased approach?
Yeah, we can do a phased approach, and again, so if it comes down to this, and I know this is something nobody wants to hear, but if it comes down to that we're gonna do a full depth reclaim on this, chances are we may not have the money to put a mat on it. Not saying it's gonna stay gravel, but what we could do is possibly do a double chip seal on it at least be a hard surface, and then 2, 3 years down the road, and then put a mat on it,
Well,
type
maybe
thing.
Commissioner Landine was kind of nodding towards this, but in what I hearing from you is that it's kind of premature to make a decision on whether to do this until we get those boring samples back, or excuse me, not whether to do it, but what to do until we get the boring samples back?
What's best case scenario, worst case scenario? I mean, there's still gonna be expense on that road, right?
Best case scenario, I've done some cost projections for doing a full depth and then stabilizing the entire sections. Just the base stabilization, grinding it up, and the base stabilization on it, we're probably looking right around the $1.2 million area, 1 million, just for those road sections. Was that 12 miles, almost 13 miles?
So 1.2 is best case and 1.986 is worst case?
Well, so 1.9, that cost estimate is based on a 1-inch mill and a 2-inch overlay. That's what that cost estimate is based on right there. This cost estimate that's in the budget has nothing to do with what we're looking to do at the road now with this, how the studies or the coring we're having done on it. Because I don't have a cost estimate, I don't know what that project is gonna look like, so I just left in my mill and overlay.
All we know is full depth reclaim is more than 1.9.
Well, if you wanna put a mat on top of it again, yes. That will probably be more. That'll be in addition to the 1.9. How much more, I don't know, I would have to, again, I didn't put a pen to putting a mat back on top of it if we did the full depth.
And we can't even talk about phasing the project in yet, because we don't even know if it needs a full depth reclaim or not.
Correct. But I can have, I would feel confident that we could do a full depth with the base stabilization with this cost.
Oh.
But not a mat on it.
So, worst
So
case.
that means it would stay gravel until we had money to put a mat on it,
Right.
which is a very highly traveled road. I think we have about 1,300 vehicles a day on the ethanol plant road, the 143. And I think we're at about 800 or 900 on 152.
When does the state indicate that they'll be done with that project? That they're going to do, and where they're going to
Oh, Highway
utilize?
46?
Yeah,
I think they 23-4, right,
Yes.
Jim? They're looking at 2 phases. First phase would, well, they said they could swap them. One phase would be from Beersford to Highway 11. And then the next phase, this next year, would be Highway 11 to Iowa.
so if we're looking at just 2 options of doing nothing, letting the road be in the condition it is until the end of that 24, or doing a chip, grind and doing a chip seal to stabilize it, which is the better option in your mind?
I've driven that road, and I think it's becoming, for all the truck traffic, something needs to be done.
Well, it's not.
I mean,
gonna-
my thing is if we want to leave this project in there, you want to do the mill and the overlay, we can do the mill and overlay. We can do it next year. But the problem is what's going to happen with all that excess detour traffic coming on it, and then it's going to tear the crap out of our new mat. You know, and again, as I told you before, probably a few months ago when we first went through this process on this budget, and I had these miles on there. About 5 or 6 years ago, we went out on some of those sections on 143 where it's just mushing out really bad in the wheel track. We went out, ground them out, paved it back in, and put a mat over top. Well, now we're 6 years afterwards. It's starting to push out again. So there's something going on underneath that's allowing that with all the truck traffic. You know, and again, to me, I mean, I think that's why we need to look at, you know, doing something and as far as the base, not a total rebuild of the road. You're just stabilizing the top, you know, 6 to 8 inches of that, everything that's gonna be ground up.
So no matter what, we need to leave about 1.2 in there, 1.3 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's whatever. Like I said, Right now, I don't have any cost estimates. Like I said, I just penned it out. The DOT had some full depth reclaim done in 2019 or 20. And I just kind of use figures from their, what their process, what it costs them, you know, per mile. Again, they did not do any base stabilization, so that would be an additional cost, and I had added that in there. For my 1.2 roughly.
Can we do half one year and half the next?
Well, we can, and again, I contemplated that. I think we could, you know, if we're gonna do any of them first, it would be 143, I think we should be first.
Okay.
I mean, that's where it's the worst. I mean, so if you left money in there, it's so we could at least do something on those 3 miles.
So how much do we need for those 3.5 miles?
I would have to do some figuring, Mike, I don't know.
Is it, I mean, equal cost per mile if we did the percentage of the 3.5 versus the 12, 13 miles?
For which cost estimate do you want?
I'm just looking at the 9.4 and the 3.5 at the 1.9.
So you're saying.
Is it per mile cost stays the same between those miles?
I would say, well, for the mill and overlay cost per mile, yes. As you can see underneath there.
Yeah, it's 154 a mile,
Yeah,
but the total of the 1.9, is that the number of the 1.9 is the 154 times 13?
yes,
Okay,
it should be.
so basically we need the 154 times 3.5 just for sure stay in there.
I want to say yes, but I can't confidently say that that's what that number is going to be.
Give me a plus or minus, what's your margin of error?
I think,
I'm not trying
I
to
think
hold
if
your
you're, I
feet to
think,
the fire. You know,
I think if you're going to do just those 3.5 miles, if you did the full depth reclaim, if you did the full depth reclaim, stabilized it, put a mat on it, 800,
800,000.
yeah, maybe 9. I'm not. I'd have to work some numbers on that. And again, as soon as I get information from the engineers on what we are looking to do, I'll have better cost estimates.
but if we put some budget authority in there for somewhere around 800,000, you feel confident, I granted, you need to get estimates and bids and all that, but you could at least get part of the project done with that, a logical part of the project.
Probably the 3.5 miles.
Okay.
And if the detour traffic tears that back up again, the state's gonna be there to help us fix it again?
Yeah, so as far as part of that detour, we're gonna have, that if they do that, we will have an agreement with them. And last time I talked to someone from the DOT, you know, we had talked about possibly just getting a lump sum of money from them. We had talked about maybe leaving everything on this until they're done with their project, and then they pay us a lump sum for damage or towards a project, and then we do it afterwards as an afterthought.
That's kinda what I was asking
know,
the one time.
So if we do 3.5 miles of this and they tear it back up, then they would be, I'm sure that you will have a haul road or a detour road with agreement with them that they would take responsibility for it, but
But they have never once given you an estimate of what that number, if a lump sum, if we just
the
wait.
DOT?
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
I just want the public to understand how fun it is to deal with it.
No.
Cause that would be a significant, information to know to make a decision here, and they just refuse to.
Yeah, and they won't know, you know, again, that's some negotiations we'll have to go into with them to determine what that
If you've
number
got
is.
3.5 miles, I don't have a choice, I would say we have to do that, but if the rest of it has, I think maybe we'll let them tear it up and then fix it right afterwards, but that's my
Well,
thought.
on the other section, we'll have to go out there and we'll have to try to patch some of that stuff on 152. I mean, there's some pretty severe areas out there as well, but. Any other questions on that? Next items I have to consider cutting. This will be in the line item for capital outlay. Machinery and equipment, I have 47,500. So I have planned for 2 trucks next year. You see the price up there. Box, plows, wings, sanders for those as well. I am open. I know the public perception that if I'm gonna cut a road project and we keep our equipment is not a very good perception for the public. So I am open to cutting these items
Completely or partially? Or
completely.
either? Completely.
So what I would ask, as far as the trucks, if you're gonna cut the trucks, I would want an additional, or I would ask an additional 100,000 of that be put in my repair budget on the upper line. I'll give you an instance. Last year, we had a 2007 Sterling truck we had to do an engine overhaul on, almost $30,000. We had a motor grader this year, one of the newer ones, had a transmission rebuild, just over $20,000. So if we're gonna pull these trucks out, I will need additional money to keep the fleet that I have going, just in case. This 2007, last year we had to overhaul, that was just out of the blue. I mean, we didn't really have a clue that it was happening or gonna happen, so,
Even new equipment can go down, can it?
correct.
So the question then is the $100,000 a wise investment, or is the $500,000 a wise investment to the taxpayers? Repair or new equipment for 2 trucks to replace aging fleet? That's the question, right?
Yes. The other item I do have in there is a fifth wheel trailer for 14,500. That I would like to keep in there because currently, and again, this would be specifically to haul the track skid loaders that we have, haul them around. Currently, we're using car trailers that are right at the legal limit of the weight of these machines. And about every year or so, we got to go in and completely rebuild the suspension system on those trailers. And one of these times, we probably won't get very lucky and we might end up losing an axle or something on there. So.
All right, what else you got, Terry?
What year are your trucks you're talking about that you'd have to add this repair to?
What year are the ones we'd
Yeah.
get rid of?
Or I mean, the ones that you would probably have to upgrade repairs on possibly?
It could be any of them. Like I said, it's gonna be the older ones, probably the Sterling, any of the Sterlings.
Okay.
And I think those go, let me think here, 2005s. We got a couple of those left, I think. 2003s, we got 2 of them. 2005, we have 2. 2007, we got 2. Typically, 2003 is probably 1 or 2005. It's one or the other.
Terry, can we just, board, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, let's just talk about these trucks, make the decision on that before we move on.
Okay?
If we could, if we can, I understand, but.
Yep.
I mean, if we're gonna have to throw $100,000 in there, and I said 500 initially, but it's not even that, it's 500 or 425,000. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have those kind of expenditures on repairs. Because the trucks, these aren't equivalent to trucks, these are a substantial upgrade to the truck that they're replacing. It's not like for like, their ability to cover roads is substantially better to get in the public. So there's, just to me, the advantage of the vehicles versus the cost, there's no doubt. So if there's any other discussion on that, but otherwise, I personally support having the new vehicles versus having to add $100,000 to repairs as a budget item.
Well, if you do replace you repair the old truck, you still have an old truck,
You still have an old truck.
you know. once you start. It can be a money pit. And these are 2003 and 2005.
Yeah, we still have 2007s.
Yeah.
It's about every 2 years we get trucks.
But I
So
mean,
they're-
some of these have got whiskers on, seriously. They got a lot of miles and,
Is there support one way or the other, board members?
I'd split the baby with the bathwater and just do one new truck. But I'd rather hear what all of his,
Oh.
what all of his cuts are and then take a look at it that way.
I am complete with them.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if you want,
Yeah, you're just bringing us these options.
these are the options that I can cut. I mean, if
Yeah, I
we
didn't
start,
know if you had more.
well, if we start cutting some of the other items, and again, it's not that we can't, but these are operating and maintenance costs that we do, just for general maintenance on roads and operating.
so can you run through, if you start with the whole situation, did we reduce the project Norway Center, the 152, 143 from 1986 to 800,000? Was that the number? Or am I-
We have not made any motions on,
No, but I mean.
Terry,
was that
would
a
we need to
proposal?
leave 100, 200,000 in there for some patchwork as needed for those remainder 9 miles of road? 9 miles, was it?
No, so I do have, so this is my materials and tasks project, for this is the monies that we spend in-house. And again, you'll see our paving here, I have 13,000 ton of asphalt that we'll lay down, that we'll have, so anything for, if we have to go do some patching on that other road, that'll come out of that. It's just, I mean, again, I'm not sure how long this revenue drought was gonna be. But if there's not gonna be money to do the other section, I guess then we would do more significant patching on it. But I hate to throw a bunch of money onto that road if we're gonna grind it up a year from now, or 2 years from now. But it is what it is.
what are the thoughts of the board?
Terry, on the micro surfacing for 550,000, that's for 10 to 12 miles. Is that standard or in line with what you've been doing every year? Or is that based upon a very specific analysis you've done?
So we've been, the last 2 years, so 20 was our first year of having a micro project completed. It's the first time we've ever done it. It's a newer method to Lincoln County. Other counties, and it's been used, across the country for years now. And then this year, the last year we had like 11 or 12 miles, I think, last year. So this year we had 14 miles this year, 14 and a half completed. So again, 10 to 12 miles, it just kind of depends on where we want to pick to do that. We try to find a road that's probably a little rougher, since this type of wear course on it, it smooths everything out. So we try to find something that would probably be, a little worse off that can take it. But again, a lot of this goes back onto our pavement assessment, and like I said, it gives us the years projects need to be done. I mean, if we want to go back and read through that, they're saying $3.1 million in preservation and maintenance on asphalt roads every year. So, are we doing that? We're close, but, here a couple of years ago, we ended up cutting our chip seal, and the only chip seals I do now are on new roads, on new mats. Kind of not the way things are supposed to be done. But again, if there's not money, then there's not money, So this year, it would be determined probably this fall, the specific place for this.
Here's what I would do. here would be the outlines of my motion. Conceptually, I would turn the mill and overlay project up there at the very top into a 2-year project instead of a 1-year project. And then Terry, you can contract with them however you want, but it would send the message to those people who use that road down there, we're still committed to the project, we're just gonna phase it in, phase 1 and phase 2, just like they do road projects all over the place, right? And just, because of our budget constraint, we would do, $850,000 of work this year, and then we'd do the remainder of the work the next year. And that is the deal I would cut with the public. But that would be my motion, to just split it into 2 logical halves, so we don't have to spend all the money this year, instead spread it out over 2 years. And then that way we can keep doing all the other maintenance level type stuff that we're working on here with the microsurfacing and all that. And then, I wouldn't touch the trucks or the box plows or any of that then to replace it, because, I think you've got the money in the budget then.
I will second that motion unless there's more.
No, that's my motion. Just thinking out loud, but that's the motion.
So we want to drop the road construction materials down by 850,000, is that what we're saying?
Drop it down to the 800,000.
Yeah, 800 or 850,000.
850,
850.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years.
over 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't, so it's 1.9, are you trying to split that in 2, cause those numbers aren't making sense?
Well, it would be a bigger project
Next
in
year.
the next budget year, because there's more miles.
Okay,
When I say in 2, I just mean 2 logical parts or phases, not
Okay.
split down the middle,
Dollars.
divided by 2.
gotcha. So it would be to reduce road construction materials by,
1.136 million. And then by doing it this way, it still means that the people down there who use those roads would know that they're still gonna get our end of the deal just over 2 years instead of 1 year.
I'm thinking out loud here too. What would are there gonna be people that are willing to do that, to bid that?
For a 3.5 mile project,
Right,
yeah, you'll get bids.
in 2 phases. And, I'm just wondering what your cost increases are, like if we wait a year, what percent typically are the costs going up?
So that's a good question. I would have to, I'd probably have to ask the engineers or get a hold of DOT, because I know they do multiple year projects and bid it as one project, but it's slated,
Yep.
completion points in that project are slated for year 1 and year 2. I suppose it's all in the contracting of how it's worded.
So if you get your borings back and they say that we have to do a reclaim, does the 850 cover that?
I am hoping so. Plus, I would hope I would get a mat on it for that. A worst case scenario would be a double chip seal, at least so it wouldn't be a gravel road.
So reclaim and a mat on those 3.5 miles, you think you could do for 850?
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay,
I think we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't put something on top of that. For 1,300 vehicles a day, 800 of them trucks.
and so your motion, Commissioner Aaron's, was to leave the trucks the way they've been proposed?
Yeah, my motion was only, as Commissioner Poppins restated it, to drop down the materials to 850. And then that results in a cut of 1.136 million. But we're committing to doing the project over 2 years. So we're not leaving these people out there high and dry just to save money this year. Cause I know South Dakota DOT has got multi-year contracts where they do this.
Well, we're not making any decisions right now on what we're doing.
Right.
We're strictly talking dollars.
Yep.
So your motion is the 850 to reduce it
Correct.
on that line item. So you're taking 1.136 million out of road construction materials. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is that your second, Commissioner Poppins?
Yes, it is, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Sherry, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt, Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
No. Motion carries. All right. Who haven't we picked on here? We have a register of deeds. Were you gonna come up?
Registered deeds is on 11, page 11.
We agree on.
Page 11.
Huh?
Page 11.
No, what do we agree on for a reduction for Terry?
1.136.
1.136, thank you.
And then what page did you say, Sherry?
11.
Thank you.
11, come on, 7, 11. Okay,
Ready?
ready to roll them.
Oh, so unfortunately, I don't have much coming out of the general budget other than my personnel services. Other than my staff, the only thing I can cut is my supplies, and there's not much. Once we had the discussion of the budgets, I went through with a fine-tooth comb. Unfortunately, a lot of these numbers are from last year, which we had a really big year last year. A lot of these numbers that I have to come off of are how busy we are, how many documents we record. And unfortunately, this year we've been busier than last year as of right now. So I was hoping to cut around, the best I could probably do would be $500 out of my supplies and materials. But I'm probably gonna be, depending of how we are next year, I'm probably gonna be coming up with different ways of getting my office supplies, because that's really the only things that I can cut that aren't off of how many documents we record.
You would already cut those, correct? And that's in here? Is that right, Sherry?
Yes.
Okay. So nothing additional that you feel that you can cut out of your budget, if I'm understanding you correctly?
No, other than my staff, which I
Sure.
don't want to, that would reduce we're a small staff, so just having people in the office and helping people with their requests and getting documents recorded and indexed in a timely manner.
I'm looking at the part-time wages here. Can you explain some of that to me?
We have one part-time person.
How many hours a week do they work?
I believe it's around 24 hours.
What do they do?
Usually her main job is indexing our documents into the books. My girls do everything on the computer side, and she indexes everything into the books. And then if she runs out of that, then she does requests and other things we need around the office.
Is she on a just work as needed, or she's a guaranteed 24, 25 hours a week?
Right now, she's guaranteed.
Okay.
She may switch it up the days depending on if we're not very busy and she feels like tomorrow will be busier or something for her to do, then she'll switch her days within the week. But
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any motions anyone wants to make? If not, thank you.
You wanna do modern preserve while you're up there? Page 47.
I guess for this, I guess it's not necessarily anything coming out of the general budget. Mainly, this is helping my office with the general budget. Any projects we're doing is out of here. Our office in the rotation is up for new computers. Usually that would be coming, I believe this year, out of the IT budget. We take that cost out of our fund. I believe Jake estimated that at $10,000.
How come there's a duplication of travel and conference in both departments as opposed to just putting it all in one department?
I believe that is for Sedasis, which is through Tyler Technologies, which is the software that we bought through our fund. So then we go to that conference through the M&P fund rather than the travel and conference through our general fund, which is more of us going to Pier and Rapid City to be certified.
Under book restoration, what does that mean for 7,500? What does that cover?
That covers any of our index books, any things that need to be needed. If we need new books that we index in or replace in, any new pages, any materials that we need to fix our index books is for that.
And then services and fees at the top under 12.5. What is covered with that?
I believe that is. To look, I believe that is our Document Pro, like annual service fee is coming out of that, and any of our like software fees.
Because we have software and equipment as one line item down there for 40,000. It's not a criticism, but if we're gonna move towards this system of paying for software and all that, I would think we would just categorize it correctly. But then, weren't we moving all software and equipment over to IT anyway?
Not because this is a special fund.
Okay,
So if we were to move it to IT, that would come out of the general fund.
okay,
And now this is coming out of our M&P fund.
okay,
Modern.
okay, I understand.
And I guess we could probably break it up more than what it is. Part of that 40,000 is, we budgeted 20,000 to start the process of rescanning all of our microfilm and all of our books, which then would go into DocPro. So I mean, we could definitely work this next year of splitting up the categories. 10,000 of that is for DocPro, and I believe that's any enhances we would want to find. Our recording software is constantly updating and having new things, and I believe this is for if there's a new system that we can do, then we will add it, and we have the money in the budget for that. And
That's
Becky,
a
do you
one-
want to explain maybe where the M&P money comes from? Because right now, the M&P fund has $117,000 sitting in their their cash fund? It is not part of the general fund?
I have every document we record that has a fee. $5 comes out of it and goes into a special fund. $3 stays here in our county. $2 gets sent to the state, and then every year that is split up evenly between all of the counties in South Dakota.
Is the preservation of the microfiche, is that what you said it was? Or of scanned materials? Or what was it again?
The
The
20,000 for
20,000?
coming out of the M&P fund?
Yeah.
Yes, yep, everything we're talking about right now is,
So that's a one-year project then, due to be done in this next fiscal year?
I believe we just are estimating to $20,000 worth of work. It will cost more than that, but we kind of thought that just the next year, and we probably thought we wouldn't be able to get it all done within, or at least not put into our system within the next. We thought we would do it by steps. I believe we go through the same company. Like I said, we haven't gone into contracts yet. We went into the same company that the auditors had their books done. I believe they have a lot less books than us, and it cost, had the numbers at one point, but we would just do $20,000 worth of work next year in this process, and then there will probably be more after that.
Okay.
Thank you. Harold? Good afternoon.
Good morning, I guess it is afternoon, sorry.
43.
Getting to be fewer of us in a room here.
Yes.
Yeah, as all of you are aware, my budget is partially funded by the state through FEMA. 50% of my salary and administrative expenses are reimbursed back to the county. Other than that, my budget is fairly slim compared to most. There's items in there you'd like justified or have questions on, I will answer those questions.
What page are you on, Harold?
43.
43.
Does anybody have any questions for Harold? His budget is pretty bare bones as it is.
We haven't changed it. If the salaries change, that'll be a change. Other than that, I can live without a raise if that leaves too, but I'm probably the only one that can, so that's probably not an option on the table.
Most of your repairs and maintenance, what does that come from, or what does it involve?
It involves maintenance on our generators on the courthouse here. That's been in my budget since we put them there, because I used to be able to reclaim that as an expense through the state. They've now thrown that out, so whether it's in my budget or John's, doesn't make a lot of difference, you know, for
So
the
as long as you
county.
were claiming it under yours, you could get recovery through FEMA or the federal, but if you
Right.
had just done it through his, we wouldn't have been able to.
Right. Now, they have discontinued that option as they have some other things too, so we're not getting as much from the state or through FEMA as we used to. But still, it helps when it covers my salary and administrative expenses.
Some of the travel and conferences, isn't that mandatory stuff you have to attend each year?
Some of it is, yes.
How
We have
about what percent?
Our conference is next week, just like yours is. So this year, we happen to be in Watertown. They moved that throughout the state. So where it's gonna be next year, I don't remember. I'm not on that board anymore, so I don't have to worry about that.
You're a one-man office.
Yes,
I see in your general question, whether it's for Sherry or you, I see you have utilities of like 15,000, and then I see other one-man offices like Human Resources for $400 or whatever. How does that work? I mean, I know you got the electric bill and the internet. What is that? What is utilities there for you?
it's, well, Sherry can, like you said, Sherry could better answer that.
I'll find it.
Yeah. But I don't know, have we changed that over the years much, Sherry?
No,
It pretty much has stayed the same. It's like me being billed for using the postage machine, which I never use.
Right.
It's something that just gets passed on per office. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like this year to date, we've got, this isn't right. How do we have? I think we were maybe off a line for 15,000, because last year we only had 1,900 budgeted, which is what we've got in training for this year. So, can I do
you're looking at that 4293 line item?
yeah. No, I'm looking at 4.2.
427,100 and
Yeah, but
42800.
what I've got pulled up here is the 4.2, 8,000. And last year we had budgeted 1,900. So I'm wondering if we don't have a typo. We had, get his budget out of
No, I
that.
would think so, but,
Yeah, if we went from 1,900 to 15,000,
yeah, no, that
I would
doesn't
say
make
we have
sense.
a typo
Well,
on
I'm
that one.
wondering if you're Bitcoin mining down there, Harold, and your computer's
Well,
using a lot
maybe
of
not.
electricity
So
or
what should it
something.
be?
Hold on just a second. Okay, yeah, so it should be 1,900 for utilities. And then 15,000 for emergency services. So I've got it off a line, so we actually. Yep, I'm missing the emergency services line. However, it totals the same, it's just in the wrong categories.
Yeah,
Right?
dollar-wise, my budget hasn't gone up other than what could be possibly salaries, so.
Right.
Right.
And I don't have $1 million item to cut, so,
Thank you, Harold.
thank you.
Just an FYI, Harold, congratulations on your efforts for Linux when they went through the storm. Well organized. Lots
It
of
went
good
fairly well.
compliments.
We immediately transitioned that into a unified command system between the city administrator, myself, and the fire chief, and we were able to get stuff lined up fairly quick. We ended up with 3 dump sites for trees, which was a godsend, because otherwise we'd have been jammed up, and we had people 5 deep on 17 now, the way it was to get into the south one. We did use the fairgrounds for a portion of it because it rained and it got so muddy, everybody was getting stuck at the ones we had, so we used that for a bit. So we'll have a little mess to clean up there, but hopefully it works well.
Good job.
Thank you, Harold.
Thank you.
Who's next? Julia, you haven't went. Deb?
We got Deb,
We got Deb,
we
Wendy.
got Deb and Wendy.
Draw straws.
Alright, so Debbie is on,
Whoever's last has to pick up the rest of the
7.
cuts.
7?
yep, 7.
7,
Okay.
come 11.
Commissioners are last.
That's a trick.
All right. Well, I really don't have a whole lot I can cut because I did make quite a few.
Yep, you've already
Cuts.
made, I know you've already made, cuts.
Yes.
Is
But
there,
on that note,
yep. Go ahead.
So, you know, the only other thing, you know, I could cut my utilities. We can shut off our lights, use half lights during the day and unplug our computers and calculators at night because they use electricity. If that would help, I would gladly start doing that. You know, I guess what I think we need to do is implement other areas to get more revenue, like Carla had the suggestion of bringing more revenue into her office, and you passed my office, getting more revenue in there, and I appreciate that, because I think that's gonna help a lot. I don't think, you know, all this stuff that we really, really need for the county, like the roads and the sheriff's office and everybody that we're cutting back, the state's attorney's office, is gonna help us in the long run. That's my opinion. I just think it's, you know, it's gonna cost us more later on. like that was already said, and unfortunately, I think we need to raise taxes. I don't wanna raise taxes, because I pay them too. And I know, and I think mine are high too, but that's a reality we're gonna have to come to, because we need to have more revenue for us to be able to go on and do things that the county needs to do for everybody that lives here. They wanna have good roads. The county gets the least amount of money out of the taxes. If people would just look at their tax notice, it's broken down as to who gets the most money. Schools get the most, then cities and districts and townships. County gets the least amount. So that's why we're having this problem, trying to run the county and not have enough money. So that's
Thank you for that.
my
Deb.
say.
Thank you.
Do you have any new FTEs in your budget?
Any new what?
Any new FTEs?
I don't.
Employees,
Full-time
employees.
You-
Oh, and new employees, no, I have one that is being a replacement. I could really use more employees, because we could use one just for phones. Today, I have 2 out, for vacation, and so I only have 5 gals, working over lunch hour. Lines are long.
How many total people work in your office?
I have 9 right now.
And how
Well-
many are you authorized for?
Is there a vacancy, is there a vacancy right now?
Yeah, you
I
got
g-
9
yeah,
people working there,
right.
you got 1 vacancy, you're authorized 10 people?
10 people.
Well, yeah, I'm filling that one. Right now, I'm just in the process of getting things completed with that. But yeah, I could probably use more for phones and, helping out, usually I try to only have 2 gone at one time, but sometimes you have somebody call in sick, so then you're 3 short. And over lunches, I'm trying to figure out a different way, maybe doing lunches, starting earlier, going later, but if you start lunches at 11 o'clock, you get here at 9, you go to break at 9:30. Or get here at 8 and go to break at 9:30, it's,
Deb, do you get a report on how many people are using these kiosks out there?
they are I don't know how many people are using them, but I know they are being used more and more all the time. I can tell that just by, we have to ring up what the county gets twice a month.
Yep.
And it's more and more, I don't have numbers right offhand, but I can tell they're getting used more and more all the time.
How much does one of those kiosks cost?
That I'm not real sure.
The extra processing fee or the actual machine cost?
Machine, like if the county said, let's get a kiosk and
I
put it
think when
somewhere.
Deb looked at it before, it wasn't a matter of buying it, it was a matter of the state having it available.
Yeah, and they just got some, and they did put, more in different areas. And to try to find an area that wants it there, it's hard.
For instance, I've been in Hy-Vee in Sioux Falls, and there'll be 20 people in line, so that takes up space, interrupts their business
Yeah,
as well.
and
So
I think they, thought, I mean, it does bring business in, because most of the time, people are gonna probably go get groceries or pick up a few
except
things
for
while
after
they're
you stood
there.
in line for 20 people, you're tired and you want to get the heck out of there, so.
And it's amazing, sometimes I hear that people are standing in line for those, but they complain when they just have to stand in line here,
I
so.
wonder what it would take, Deb, we got, when to put one here in our courthouse. What
I-
would that take?
I don't know, I could ask.
Because that could alleviate some of your
Some of the
lines are
lines.
getting, as we watch, your lines get longer and longer
Yes.
and longer.
And usually though, on Tuesdays when you're here, most generally, they're not as long, because Tuesdays are our slower day. So you need to be here on a Monday or Friday.
Correct me, because there's a 2.95% convenience fee, I think, for using those machines.
I think so,
Yeah.
yep,
Cause you use your debit card, or credit
Yes.
card.
yeah.
For the cost of them, yeah.
Cost
the
there,
debit.
and
Yeah.
we have a credit card machine, we
Yep.
use here too, and more people are using those too. It's just for the convenience, and they don't seem to mind paying that convenience fee.
I think it's, because you have to use a credit card or a debit card. You don't have the ability to use cash or anything at those machines.
Not cash. I think you can use an e-check. I'm not positive on that.
I
And I know they are also starting, I don't know if it started yet, but they want to start doing driver's license renewals at those machines too, so.
Oh.
I think if you're current and everything like that, wouldn't be a new move-in or anything.
And you're not Jim Schmidt. You're okay to use those?
So Debbie, on your budget, you did make an error where we needed to add 20,000 back into supplies,
Oh,
correct?
yeah, on that one, I did cut, my supplies and materials. It was 23,000, and I wrote 3,000. I should have written 20,000.
Okay.
So is it supposed to be 23,000?
Well, I could probably cut 3 out of there
So we got 20.
instead of the 20,000.
So
Are you
that's-
able to do that with any other line item?
Well, the motor vehicle supplies, that money is, we get 25% of our motor vehicles, sales or whatever we do from the state. So that's money from them for us to use for motor vehicle supplies. So I use that a lot for paper and, other things that we need for the office because we go through a lot of paper, printing out applications and detail reports.
All right, so
So I
just have
really
that one
can't
Okay with leaving
correction.
it at 20, though?
Yeah, the other one, I think I could leave that at 20,
Okay,
because it's,
We need a motion to fix that, Sharon.
I would so move.
Thank
sorry
you.
about
Is there a
that.
second?
Second.
Thank you, Sherry.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Nope.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other motions on that budget? If not,
Windy.
Wendy.
What page? It's in the back, isn't it?
Which one?
31.
Okay, well, our budget is also a small budget. I think we could take our $500 in insurance off unless Sherry says it needs to stay.
You don't have any vehicles, and I think that's what that line is for.
Then there you go. In the travel and conference, we have $3,280. That could be reduced to $2,000. We go to a spring and a fall conference. This year, our spring conference was virtual, but this year's fall conference will be in person. So I would assume next year's conferences would be in person. It could be reduced further, probably down to 1,000, but I would like to keep it at 2,000 because there's a national 4-H advisor conference, and in 2022 that will be in Wisconsin, and so that would be I would drive there probably with some Minnesota people to share the cost. This year, that conference is in Nashville, Tennessee, so they move that all over the place, but it could be reduced further if you would like. And our furniture and minor equipment could probably be reduced to, I don't know, $300. I haven't used it yet, so I don't know. I don't have plans for anything in that section. So the only other part would be in the personal services, I guess. I don't know if, Sherry, if you have the total of what we had down for the overnight watch people.
I did not. When I did the budget, I didn't even think about, or when I did the wages, I didn't even think about those.
Because I don't
things.
know, is that included in that part or not?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, well, this year we paid them, or will pay them, about $480, and that's because we did 2 nights over here and paid for 2 people. So that was a total of 40 hours that we paid somebody.
So Wendy, your furniture and minor equipment, you wanted that reduced to what?
300.
300?
So the wages for the night watch people are gonna be different now? Cause you're not gonna have them over there, or?
Well, we probably would not this next year. We have them over here when we have animals staying overnight, but I'm going to guess that it'll be more like a come and go scenario for this next year.
So you're saying I don't have to have the wages in there?
I would say so.
Perfect. Then I did it correct.
All right.
They're currently not in there,
No, they're not in there.
so we don't, so the
Well,
only
then there you
change is
go.
reduce insurance, to zero that out, 'cause she has no vehicles, change the travel conference to 2,000, and take the minor furniture down to 300. I'll move.
2480.
2480.
$2,480.
I would so move.
Thank
Second.
you, thank you.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes,
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
And Toby is available by phone if you guys wanted to discuss with him.
anybody else left here?
Julia is.
Yeah. I thought we did yours.
She wanted to be
Depends on
last,
who we-
Oh, that's right.
but I don't know if she has anything else to say. I think she might have said what she wanted to say already.
What page did you
Hold on, I gotta figure out if they're doing,
That's
don't-
good, Toby.
You want to do Toby? What's,
okay.
what number?
Carter, do you wanna call Toby? It's April. April, do you wanna call Toby? Sorry, I didn't see the ponytail. Page 35.
Sherry, I'm at about 1.6 1/2.
Without the changes that I just did, or without the Wendy's changes, which is great, but I am at. We're gonna applied cash of $4,196,428.
Okay.
How much reduction did you have, Madam Chair? 1 million what?
About 1.66.
Yes. No, I'm
One
with-
point six, or excuse me,
What-
1.647.
What page is P and Z?
P&Z.
35.
35.
with you.
35.
Hello?
Hello.
How you
Hello.
feeling, Toby?
Not too bad. I'm getting better.
Good.
Good. Did you bring us some cut options to consider?
Well, I didn't wake up this morning thinking that, but I've sat here and put down some pencil to some things. So, I guess the first thing was that we did cut, or you did cut the halftime FTE that we requested between Jess and myself. The first cut would be under, if you're looking at my page, would be under fees and contracts. I proposed to cut that $10,000, and the basis for that would be I budgeted a portion of that for drainage ordinance permit and development, but I think we can push that off a year.
So we cut that by 10,000?
Yep.
And then I don't know, when we made our other motion, we were voting on that other budget, so the other half of the FTE is in here and we talked about it.
That's the 45,000?
We're taking 45 out of that.
Yep.
45's coming out of that.
Yep. So that's been cut.
Toby, under publishing where it says 6,000, do we recover all of that?
Yes. And typically I budget 4,000 for that, but I did increase that by 2,000 in this budget. The addition to Argus Leader is added to the cost, as well as with 5 legal newspapers, we've been having issues with getting everything published timely. And so while the one that misses it, they allow us to, they don't charge us on the second publication. I have to pay for all of the 4 publications. But if I wanted to make that status quo, I would just cut 2,000 off of that.
So,
And I hope that you guys would consider maybe looking at legal newspapers when you consider that.
yeah, so there's been at least, what, 4 occasions now where we've had to republish? Is it 3 or
I've
4?
had 3. I think the auditor's office has had 4. Yep.
So for a total of 7?
Yeah.
And it's all because of the one entity? No,
Yeah.
with him because of the one entity.
The auditor's office had two different, there's a total of two.
And the majority of them are because of the one entity?
Yes,
Okay, super majority?
yes.
Okay. Toby, do we need to look at an impact fee for developers in order to cover our cost?
Well, the impact fee, like Sioux Falls charges and Harrisburg charges, goes towards development costs, so roads, bridges, drainage and those different types of things. So we don't have a CIP budget or plan, so I don't really have a way to allocate those costs. I think we should look at an application fee increase, which I'll jump down there in a second. The other cut that I have is under travel and conference. I can cut $2,000 out of that budget. What I'll do is that's not for travel. It's essentially for building inspector certification. But I can do one every other year with our staff on that one. It's not preferable, and it leaves us in a pinch if somebody leaves or something like that. But I do realize we need to make as many cuts as we can. So
Nothing new.
and then another one that I throw out there is the planning and zoning board mileage. We do offer, or we do pay them $65 per meeting, and then in addition to that, we do pay mileage for their travel. I think it was last year or the year before, you as a board removed mileage from your budget, and so I think I don't want to do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but I would just say that might be an option.
I don't think so.
And then under revenue, under permits, we always, as Sherry says, we always under budget our revenues. To date on building permits and application permits, I'm at 233,725.02. So I think you can increase that conservatively to 200,000, and that's without an increase in fees with it. So if I added all those up, we'd be about 61,000 in cuts and an increase in revenue of 31.5 for a budget difference of about 93,000. And those are, again, I cut the comp plan out of the previous cut, so that was my non-wage increase, and as well as I cut furniture and equipment completely. So I had it's a pretty operational budget right now with just staffing and really our costs. But I'm hoping that next year that we have less rezonings. And then we also need to really look at, I budgeted some money there for that fees and contracts with engineering, and I budgeted some money there to do studies for, different requests we've had over the years, the Tom Stangrams, Ernie Stratmeyer, and some of those, but we can't do those if we don't have the money.
What do we charge for building permits right now?
It's a variable fee, so it's based on the square footage of the building, and it's also a commercial. We do the estimated cost of construction.
Is that set in statute, or do we have discretion over that?
Oh, well, not state statute, but it's set by the board, by you.
So we've had these discussions about impact fees and increasing these other fees. Do you have any thoughts or ideas about that? I mean, I understand we don't have a CIP right now, but we do have a 5-year road and bridge master or plan that the highway department has to do. I mean, granted, your office is not linked with his, but there is an impact fee that comes along with development.
Yeah, I think, there's probably the rezone applications and the platting fee, or the plat applications, and then our subdivision applications. Those are the ones that need to be increased. That's where we lose, I would say, more what I not necessarily lose, but that's where the application fees don't cover the services that we provide.
And you said that was platting fees and what else?
Yep. So the rezoning application fee, the platting fee application, and then the subdivision applications.
Thank you, Toby.
Is there a motion?
So his final numbers were what, Sherry? 60? Pardon?
His
As far as
final
cuts are
number,
concerned?
We're not
Commissioner,
worried about the planner, but
Commissioner Schmidt, his number was 45 plus,
Yep.
45,000
Yep.
plus 10,000
Yep.
plus 2,000.
That's what I have down as well.
I've got that.
Plus 2,000, plus 2,000 in travel and conference, and 2,700 in planning and zoning board mileage.
I wouldn't cut the mileage. That's a tough enough job the way it is, Toby.
I don't disagree.
So we've got the travel and conference, the 2,000 out of that, and we've got 10,000 out of fees and contracts. And then was there another amount,
Another
Toby?
2,059.
2,000 out of publishing.
And then, Toby, you said that the 10,000 is for, the $10,000 cut is for what?
Well, it's hard for me to ever calculate because that's based on applications coming in, but I do budget for just separate engineering analysis. And so I was anticipating the drainage ordinance and the permit development.
So does that mean that that pushes back our ability to implement a drainage ordinance by a year?
Yes.
I'd consider a motion.
I'll make a motion to cut 49,000 out of his budget.
you're including the half part-time employee?
Yeah, I'm taking out 45 and 2,000, then another 2,000, but I'm leaving the 10,000 in there under the fees and contracts for the drainage issue. So my motion is to cut the 49,000.
And then add the revenue?
No, and the reason I'll say that is, I think the revenue is entirely speculative, and I have no way, I mean, I understand adding revenue when it's required for the purposes of, you know, the offset,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think we can budget for something that's pure
Right, because I think
speculation.
right now it's a 3-year trend.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, do I agree with Toby about where the trend is gonna go? Yeah, but I'm not making that part of my motion.
Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, Sherry, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yep.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Commissioner Poppins.
No.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you, Toby. Stay well.
Yep. Bye.
All right, Sherry, where are we at with cash applied?
Again, rough estimate, 4,192,228.
Okay,
We're trying to get to, Madam Auditor,
we're way past it.
So we're under what we've had for cash applied in the last 3 years.
What is that total number again?
4,192,228.
And there's lots of things we're just not doing.
Yep, just not doing. Because we still aren't a zero balance, and we're chewing into reserves.
That would be on page 3. No, I'm sorry, page 6. Oh, or we could start with elections. Let's start with elections.
Okay,
What page?
That would be page 4. So the salaries and wages, would include the precinct workers. Pretty much have to have 3 to 5 precinct workers in each location, so those are pretty set. I do have in there, 3 part-time people to work in the office for a couple of weeks during the election time, just to alleviate the stress on the staff and their responsibilities. I could possibly cut that down, because we've never done it, consistently, so I don't have a basis of what it would be. I've wanted to just put 3 in there. I could maybe possibly use 2, but at the same time, if I put 3 in there and they were standing around, then I would send somebody home, so. Publishing, that's printed, all my numbers have pretty much been trended over the last 3 elections. 2020's blowing that out of the water, because now we're on our, 2nd special election this year? 2021, whatever. Travel and conference is the mileage that we pay the election workers for going back and forth. The furniture and equipment, that is the poll pads. With that, it would be a 6-year contract. This would be the 2nd year payment, because I have the $10,000 in there to pay for it this year.
How many?
45 poll pads.
Is this 4 elections?
Hmm?
Do you anticipate 4 elections in this budget, or how many elections in this budget?
On this budget, I anticipate 2,
Just 2?
primary and general. Because we'll be in timeframes where if anything gets referred, I'll be able to put them on those 2 elections.
Hopefully.
Anybody have any other questions, motions? All right, if not, we'll move on.
Okay, so if you want to do the auditor's budget, bare bones, there's nothing really to cut. The training, travel and conference, I have to do in order to be certified as the auditor, so I've knocked those down as much as I can.
Anybody have any questions about the auditor's budget?
No, it's okay.
All right, any motions about the auditor's budget?
If there's no changes, or
There's no changes, so we'll keep going.
Yep.
I think you are left, Julie.
if we do the commissioner one, then she's last and has to pick it up.
We're gonna do the commissioners last.
Page 17.
Again, my budget's fairly straightforward. In all seriousness, I'll just quick walk through it because it's rather short. Fees and contracts, as you can remember, I absorbed all the recruitment as a cost savings to the county, because then we can get a deal if we have one subscription to the different portals. Wellness is a percentage for wellness programming that the commission was supportive for 3 years. And that goes towards the employees and a reimbursement towards their premium if they complete the necessary steps. Repairs and maintenance, $500 just for maintenance, routine maintenance in the department. Supplies and materials, it's pretty straightforward, $1,500. Travel and conference, I did decrease that, I believe, last year or the year before. I'd like to keep that in simply because I have 2 HR certifications, and they do need continuing ed credits to keep those certifications. Utilities is fairly consistent at $1,300, and other is for EAP services for the employees, and then also employee training as the county sees fit. Oh, and a filing cabinet.
What's your page number, Julia?
17.
17.
Does anybody have any questions for Julia?
Didn't we dispose of a filing cabinet a couple months ago? Oh.
Yeah. Trust me, I went around the county and tried to find a filing cabinet, but the trouble is they don't have locks, so in all seriousness, I'd like to keep employee information
Sure.
confidential.
Absolutely.
All right, any motions? If not,
Thank you.
last but not least, we have our budget to look at.
And Madam Chair, are we gonna look at these other budgets as well, which there's nobody here, there's no technical representative for?
Is there any one in particular you wanted to look at?
Well, yeah, there's a couple different things.
Okay.
Like on the coroner, myself and Commissioner Gibbon met with our coroner.
Do you have a page number on
Yeah,
that?
yeah, page 19.
Thank you.
And what he told us was that we could cut our, I know he submitted his coroner's budget, but what he also told me, and I think he separately told Commissioner Gibbon, he can correct me if I'm wrong, is there is one institution in Lincoln County that keeps calling the coroner's office, asking them to perform services that don't need to be done. And so I think we as and we could maybe save $1,500 on it. And this one institution keeps having, whenever someone passes away, is they keep calling for the services of the coroner when they don't have to. There's no medical necessity to it. And I don't know if that requires us to write a letter to those people or to assert ourselves somehow. But they're, even though it's $1,500, they're eating into our budget, and it's not required. So what I would do is, given the fact that I talked to the coroner and, he said it's not necessary and these people need to stop doing it, and it's one institution, and I know Commissioner Gibbon has talked to this institution, is I would cut $1,500 from the coroner's budget.
Is that your motion, Commissioner?
That's my motion.
I'll second it.
And I think the
Commissioner-
institution went so far as saying, well, then stop paying it.
So,
Right.
do we want to move forward and write them a letter and tell them we won't be paying it, or how do we want the bills? Because if we shouldn't be paying the bills, we should have them approved before they're put through the process.
I agree. I mean, I don't want to be ham-fisted about it, but this institution should be told to knock this off.
So do we want to draft up a letter and send it to them?
We should, and then we should also drop $1,500 out of the budget.
Okay.
The problem with dropping it out of the budget, if we're paying the coroner for services, it's that
Right.
institution is submitting, or asking to have the services done, I think we need to direct the coroner not to do the service. And then he can't submit the claim
Right.
But
as well, so that
If they call and request it, doesn't he have to do it?
this is where, this is a little more interesting than it just simply saying, don't do it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting don't do it. What I'm suggesting is, I had a one-on-one meeting with the guy, and he told me, cut $1,500 out of your budget.
Okay.
Are there claims that we can go back for and say these weren't?
I don't think so, because the coroner performed the service.
And
So
won't-
he had a valid claim against the county.
But
for the
I'm saying, can
service.
we go back to that institution and try to recoup some of these if they weren't a legitimate service that was required?
I don't want to say they're not legitimate. I don't want to get into litigation with them. All I want to say is, the person who heads this institution literally told Commissioner Gibbon, stop paying the bill.
That is correct.
Well, the thing is, though, the bill is with the coroner, it's not with them. I mean, if they submitted to a bill to us, I could say we'd stop paying it, but.
Yeah, what he meant to say was, I agree with you, it is not medically necessary.
So is he being deceitful, and if he knows that this is not a legitimate?
He doesn't have discretion. Once he's called, he has to act.
No, I'm not talking the coroner, I'm talking the institution that I'm not aware of who that institution is.
The institution is going to make the claim, at least individuals at a lower level, that it is required. And I'm telling you, it's a legal gray area, and it is not required.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sherry, you call the question?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes,
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes,
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
Who was the second on that?
myself.
Schmidt. Thank you.
I like that.
The other issue I wanted to bring up, Madam Chair, before we get to the commission budget, was the issue of the, some of the debt service. So debt service on the highway building here, that is page 51. And I guess this was brought forward to me by a couple people who called me about this, and I told them I'd raise it for discussion, and maybe we can get an answer here. So we have principal left on the highway building of $354,000, but we're paying interest payments of $161,000. Now, I mean, I'm open to being educated on how this works, but could we write a check for $354,000 and not have to pay the $161,000 in interest, or not?
No. It's a bond payment, so it's amortized over 20, 30 years. And so this is what's budgeted for that principal and interest payment every year.
Okay, so we can't pay, like, we can't pay it off early and save on interest payments.
Okay, so what's gonna happen on the meeting on the 28th? I've been talking to Tom,
Grimmin?
Grandma.
thank you, about refinancing and doing a recall on the bonds for the courthouse. That, I sent you the resolution that Meyer Henry's wrote up for that, for your review, to be discussed on the 28th. But yes, we're looking into refinancing because of the interest rates being low right now.
I will just say the resolution is incredibly legally dense. Very difficult material to wade through. But thank you for the refinance opportunity. I mean, I thought it was a legitimate question that these people brought forward to me is, why don't you just pay it off and stop paying $160,000 in interest?
Well, because
think we
we
got-
still owe however much, I'm not
I
gonna
got the answer.
run a
Yeah.
number off my head, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't just owe the $354,000.
No,
That's the annual payment that
yes,
we have to make.
yep.
So I think the next follow-on question is, do you know how much we owe on that bond? Offhand? if
Not
you
off
know.
the top of my head, I would
Okay.
not give a number.
Okay,
we'll have it on the 28th.
You'll have it on the 28th.
yep, we'll know then.
All right, thank you.
So we do have an opportunity for cost savings by maybe rolling up all of these different bonds
The
into
one package.
one package?
No.
Like doing a house
Can't you,
Nope.
refi?
can't
Nope.
you can't you reconfigure them into one?
No,
Really?
no, because one's callable, one's not callable. So we can refinance it at a lower interest rate. The other one that's callable, we could pay off and, which we're planning on doing, we're paying it down and then rewriting it.
So can we refi all of, except for the ones that are callable? Can we refi all the other ones as well?
We only have the one other one for the highway shop.
Okay, because,
We've got the highway
Okay.
shop and the courthouse building.
okay. I saw debt service TIF number 7. I
That's,
That's
assume because
something.
it's a TIF,
that's
can't do
different.
that.
Yep,
Okay.
that's really not even
Okay.
ours.
And then we've got the debt service on the courthouse. That's callable?
That's callable, yep.
Okay. Okay.
This was on the highway.
It's on the highway shop, yeah. Well, he's working up a deal to rewrite both of them.
Okay.
There'll be a lower interest rate on the, highway shop, and it's gonna be lower on it's gonna be, I think, 2-year earlier payoff on the courthouse.
On the courthouse. Which will be when? Isn't that coming up? 20,
2024. I
Right.
think if we refinance, or
Yeah.
pay it off and
Yeah.
refinance it, 2024.
okay.
Thanks, Sherry. Does that get us to the Board of Commissioners?
Sure.
All right. I
Unless
don't
you
know.
want to go over weeds and stuff like that, Madam Chair.
yeah, there are other departments. I don't know if there's, opportunities for savings there or not until we review it.
Weeds are weeds. Chemicals are chemicals. I don't know how, I don't know. You gotta spray your ditches for noxious weeds. The only thing that changes is what's the cost of the chemicals that you're gonna have. And
Sherry, is there anything we can do on our publishing cost?
Sure. Get them to publish the first time? No, I don't know. Sorry, I
That's
should have said
alright.
that. No, because what we did is the 3-year trend, but then we had to have it increased a little bit because now we've added Argus Leader to it.
Okay,
So, and with rescheduling the hearings and everything else, we have significant publishing costs, and I don't see it really changing.
Well, are we gonna ask this entity to reimburse us?
Well, what happens is they don't charge us for the one, and then they'll charge us when they re-advertise it. But the price of the publication isn't normally the biggest issue. It's everything that goes along with it.
Right. Right.
Sherry, do you wanna enumerate what commissioners' fees and books cover for the purpose of?
So, to make it, I don't know, simple, that is the dumping ground for the commissioner's budget. The ones that consistently come out of there are the Canton Chamber of Commerce, Sioux Falls Development Foundation, Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, Sedaco and NACO memberships. Commissioner fees and books, I don't know.
So it's all those other things
So
that we pay
it's,
for.
let's say you decide you wanna do a drainage study and nobody's budgeted for it, it
Yep.
comes out of your budget. Or you wanna do a traffic study and nobody's budgeted for it, it comes out of your budget. That's why the number's high. You know, whether you have that number high or you take it out and supplement as you need, it's whichever way you wanna do it. This is just your spending authority in case something comes up.
Without taking it out of contingency.
Correct, or having a hearing.
So our $100,000 publishing budget, is that really ours, or should that be at the auditor's office?
No, it's yours,
Why is that?
because you're the one that requests the publications. You request, it's the hearings for the commissioners. I mean, you wanna move it to the auditor's office?
Well, I
It's
mean,
still gonna cost the same.
yeah, no, I get that part. What I'm trying to get at is more a transparency issue here, is people look at it and they're like, well, what are you publishing? And it seems as if we actually publish through the different departments that work for us as opposed to publishing ourselves, right?
Well, you publish your hearing. It's
Okay.
your hearing, I'm
Okay.
just your clerk.
Yeah, I can be,
So,
I can be
yeah.
persuaded on this. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Right,
peop-
so,
the
but that's
public
why
understands.
Toby's taken over some of his own publishing.
Okay,
You know, everybody's got their individual publishing. But what specifically comes out of your publishing is your hearings, your bids, and not your bids for your highway, it's your bids for your surplus vehicles or whatnot. So they really are yours for publications.
and right now, we're essentially running at about $100,000 a year on publishing
gonna-
fees.
Just double check this, because I can. Maybe if I can find the page. So out of the publishing, we had 42,000, and this is 18, 19, 20. 42,040 and 59. The current budget was 90, and you put the $90,000 in last year because you added the Argus Leader. So with the, you know, that's not what we use for a lot of them where you use the trend, because we don't have a trend with the Argus Leader in there yet.
Right.
And again, this is just spending authority. It's not saying you're going to spend the $100,000. And you can back it down to 90 if you want to, and if we have to supplement it later, we can do that.
Well, do we have the authority to recover any of these publishing fees? Like surplus property, probably not. I mean, there's no bill payer on those, but is there a bill payer for these other? And so that's the first question. I guess the second question then is, are we already doing that?
We are doing it for like the alcoholic beverage license. I think when they do the rezoning, there's nothing that comes to us for publication. I don't know if that's part of their building permit. So no, the only one is the alcoholic beverage license, temporary beverage license. They pay publishing fees. When we have a hearing for a township, it's those fees that we set up last, 2 months ago with Sean, where he said the fees are gonna be, if you have 2 hearings, it's this much, that covers the publication cost. And they've been there.
And now I hope you can kind of see why I'm asking that question of, are these actually the commission's fees if we're routing them through, like, planning and zoning is doing a rezone? You see what I'm saying?
I do,
So
but
I'm kinda wondering-
I don't know, well, see, and I know the rezone, but do they charge them publication fees at all?
Well, that's what I was getting at with Toby earlier.
Hold on
and I
just
don't
one
know if-
second. When they do a rezoning hearing, does it go to the commission's budget? It doesn't. So rezoning, when we do a publication for that, it goes to planning and
P&Z.
zoning. Yep.
And then because I was asking Toby about that earlier, and he said that's a potential for recovery right there.
Right, but and your biggest thing is probably your minutes that are published, your annual reports.
Yeah.
Your minutes are huge,
Okay,
so,
okay.
and now we've
Get
got
it.
the 5 papers, so.
We didn't talk to our veteran service officer, and
When I talked to her earlier, she said there really wasn't anything that she
Well-
could take out of it.
there's not really anything there.
No.
So I don't know, commissioners, is there anything we feel like we can cut out of our budget?
Well, I think we should have a discussion about what the cost of living increase is going to be. We've got a 2.5% budgeted for 2.5%. I think the state of South Dakota is something less than that. I think several of the school districts around us are less than that. I think we could save some money by not giving out as much of a 2.5% cost of living increase.
Should I call Julia back down here? We also have to think about, Joel, though, is that the 2.5 isn't just for the current employees, it's also for the recruitment that we're trying to do. And the people that we've got now, the recruitment that we're trying to do, the biggest reason that they're not getting hired or taking the jobs is because of the wage. But
is
I
that-
can call Julia back down to talk on that.
Yeah, I mean, is that documented? I mean, I don't
Yep.
see any documentation on that. I just hear people saying, well, they don't want to work here. But we don't actually do an exit interview with somebody before they even get hired here, right?
Well,
We call Julia down.
yep,
Yeah.
I'm going to.
I'm pretty sure Julia asked those questions of why somebody turned down a job if it's offered to them. Bill, did you have any light you'd like to shed on it, if you know?
No, we've interviewed, and specifically, we have been told no because of that. I don't want to go too much into it, but that's one of the things we've run into is the difference in levels between Minnehaha County and our office.
Which that's a wage starting point issue as opposed to a cost of living increase issue. Like if, I don't know how many people ever come into a job and say, well, what's my cost of living increase gonna be next year? I think they come into the job and they say to themselves, how much are you offering me? I think that is the primary motivation as opposed to the COLA increase.
But that's where
Right.
it starts, is at step 1, they adjust well, Julia can talk on it.
Hi.
Yeah, my understanding is that's how those starting wages get adjusted, by adding that, so.
How can I help?
The debate, if I may, Madam Chair, is
Go ahead.
the discussion is trying to find out why people either A, not applying or turning down an offer in reference to our starting salary or salaries that we're able to offer them. How many times is the amount that we're offered to pay becoming an issue?
Recently,
Yes.
a fair amount, at least 4.
Out of how many?
I would have to go back, I'm sorry. It's definitely, without having data in front of me, it's definitely more of an issue than it has been in the past. In addition to that, the number of applicants has significantly decreased. The other thing working against us, to go off of what State's Attorney Woolman said, is the distance, of course, and then also our benefits is huge. Just as a point of comparison, I don't have the data with me, but I did an analysis of our benefits package, and not only is our coverage less rich than other comparable organizations, it's extremely higher. So it's not only a wage issue, because that's definitely a wage issue, but it's also a benefits issue because it bleeds into the wages. So both equally are under market, I'll say that. Wages and benefits alike.
Is our COLA above market
Compared to who? Just in general?
compared to well, you just referenced under market.
Well,
I want you to use the same measuring stick you just used when you made that statement
sure.
to apply that to our COLA.
So cost of living, are we talking 2.5? That's going to be slightly higher than market right now. With that said, we were under market significantly last year. So we're lower last year, we're a touch higher this year, but with that said, then you hear about other agencies giving 3 to 3.5%, and the school district giving 3.26, I think. So it's all
That was the Sioux Falls School District, right? Gave that to
Correct.
new teachers. They actually segmented that out, I believe, right?
Oh, my understanding was, no, that was for across the board, and
Okay.
then new teachers got an 8% increase, is my understanding.
Good. I think
But I'm
that's
just,
what
as a point of
I think that's
comparison.
what I could be referencing, yeah.
So the discussion started here, possibly not offering a 2.5 cost of living increase. So that's what has started this discussion, just so you know.
Thank you. Another factor to consider, and I've said all this before, right? But just to reiterate, we have also, part of our population is under union contract with a 3.25% increase. So we have some of our staff getting 3.25, and I'm not arguing they aren't deserving of the 3.25, but what I'm arguing for is the rest of our staff to get the same amount and be equal across the board.
Doesn't that effectively unionize the cost of living increase then? I mean,
I'm just saying it would be nice to treat all of our employees consistently.
well, we have a hardworking workforce.
Yep.
But they don't all wear bulletproof vests to their job every day, nor do they put themselves in situations where they could suffer deadly harm. And I think that's the reason why the law enforcement is unionized, and for the most part, the rest of the workforce isn't, right?
I would disagree.
Okay. Why are they unionized then?
Well, typically a union forms when they think they're not being treated fairly. Now, to your point about those people get a higher cost of living because they're unionized, their pay grade is determined on their responsibilities. The cost of living for everybody is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're compensated at a higher rate, or, like everybody else determined. But the cost of living for everybody should be consistent, right?
I don't think society is segmented that way, right?
Okay, well,
I mean, that's why some people get unions, but here in South Dakota, we're an at-will state. So unions are the exception, not the rule. But they are the rule as far as it relates to law enforcement in this state. Many law enforcement agencies are unionized. But, I mean, I don't think you could show me one county that has a union shop other than law enforcement, can you?
Yes.
Who has a union shop in their county
Union shop, like,
where they're unionized?
Minnehaha with their highway department.
I was just gonna
Okay.
say, there's several highway departments
Okay.
that are unionized, and then law enforcement, of course.
But other than that,
Typically, that's pretty typical, those two
Right.
entities.
okay, yeah, so I take the point about the highway shop, and there's been nobody here from the highway shop advocating for that.
I
Why
would
don't-
disagree.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see them here. They haven't told me,
Okay,
but I don't see the movement for it. So I'm going back to this 3.25% cost of living increase. It effectively unionizes it if you're gonna base everything off the union. That's my point.
There are
I think it's
several
in the-
counties, though, that negotiate their union cost of living, and then they do it across the board. There are other benefits that the union gets that the other employees don't get, so the cost of living is usually across the board.
Okay? I just think we're being very generous with our cost of living increase here.
What do you think it should be, Commissioner Aaron's?
I think we should index off the state scale. So when the state comes in, whatever the state of South Dakota issues as the index, is that we index off of that. So.
Do you know of any other counties that do that?
Not off the top of my head. I don't know if they do or they don't.
Do you know, Julie?
It's common practice to use a variation of counties. I think all of our comparable counties use the state and use that data, but they don't solely say, the state did this, so we're gonna follow suit. I'll also say that the state is experiencing some issues with their wages, so there's that consideration as well.
Does the state package mirror ours, or are they more in there?
And when you say package, what do you mean?
Well, for their extra benefits, for health insurance?
Oh, sure.
For things like that?
They went through some recent changes, but they do offer paid high deductible plan for their employees, is my understanding. And there's now 4 tiers, but still with the 4 plans that they offer. Based on my knowledge, they're all cheaper than ours.
Does anybody else have any questions for staff? Thank you. So where does everybody want to take this? I mean, we need to get something done. So Sherry, what's time-wise, what are we at?
It would be nice to have the budget passed by the 28th of September.
So
That's
would
what
we
you mean?
be, the motions we've made, if we approve this budget, then does that have to get republished again?
Yes.
As a provisional? Like an
No, I
amended
think
provisional?
if you were to say, yep, the 4.1, I would go in and make sure that my numbers all jive. We would come in on the 28th and approve it and then have to republish it. That's what I would do.
Okay.
But we don't have to do it as a provisional again.
Okay, but so we don't need to vote anymore on what we've already voted on today or on this budget
No,
as a whole?
no. But then there's no other budgets that anybody wants to go through.
Right. All right, so we have went through and we've made motions and changes. It is a public hearing, so if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the budget, come on up. All right, I don't see anybody, so. Commissioners,
I'm happy with it, I could pass it right now.
as could I. So we're gonna wait, right? You wanna wait?
I want to bring the numbers back to you and send them out to you again. I want to make sure that I've got everything in here. But if
Okay.
you want to pass it on without seeing it, that's fine too.
Let's take the conservative, let's see it first.
We were told the other night at the joint Sioux Falls City Council meeting by the Sioux Falls City Attorney, who was very insistent about this issue of when substantial changes are made during a public hearing, is that it has to be republished for consideration by the public. And he was insistent. And that seemed to be the main reason why everybody on this commission, or one of the reasons, why there was such a need to have to pass the medical cannabis issue. Well, I would think here today that if we're gonna use that same logic, there's been substantial changes made to this. It's gotta be republished and reopened for an additional hearing.
Okay, so we can do that on the 28th.
We can do that. I just indicated that with the changes made. Mike's not on. I would be comfortable with passing it. I do think there's a significant difference between an ordinance that would become part of our ongoing statutes and a one-year budget, and with the knowledge that we were making adjustments and the public is constantly aware of that, so.
Bill, do we need to,
7/21/10, amendment of correction of provisional budget by commissioners. At any meeting held to and during a consideration of a provisional budget by the board may eliminate, amend, correct, change, or alter any of the purposes, objects, items, schedules may deem necessary and proper. All such amendments, eliminations, corrections, changes, alterations, insertions, and additions shall be made before the final approval and adoption of the budget by the board before October 1st of each year. All amendments, corrections, changes, alterations, eliminations, insertions, additions made in or to the provisional budget shall be noted on the provisional budget and shall be entered in length of minutes of the board.
so, and this was,
see.
and this was our public hearing for this, so timing wise, I don't think there's any requirement that we redo that.
I would republish it in full regardless,
Right.
but yeah, as far as to having another hearing, I can read over it further and talk to Bill.
Check, but we can always after we do that, if we need to, we can renotice it at the next meeting.
On the 28th of September. Well, technically, we'll have one on the 21st.
Yeah, and I don't think this should be a race to the bottom in terms of the government saying, what is the most minimum, bare minimum I can do? I think actually, we should strive to do the most we can do in terms of opening it up to the public and transparency. So we should take what we did today, put it on the internet, in this big document right here, this 60-page document. Then we should republish it, and then we should have our hearing on the 28th, because there's been substantial changes. So people could come in and make their comments on the changes.
If you wish to have another hearing, you can just notice it as such and do it again.
Yeah, if you want to have a hearing, let's go ahead and make the motion to do publish for the hearing, and then I don't have to wait until, and I can get my timing in there.
So I'll make a motion to
Right.
do that.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Sherry, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes, motion carries.
Hopefully we get triple the number of people that spoke today then.
I'd consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second?
Thank you. Sherry?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.